Want to know on three. 1, 2, 3.
Want to know.
Hit it. Welcome, hola, and bonjour. You're listening to the official 1-0 Fantasy Football Podcast. It's time to join your host, the commissioner extraordinaire, the fantasy football trademarker, Owen O-Dog Drake.
Welcome to another edition of 1-0 Fantasy Football, where you're the 1 and I'm the O. Today, as is the case with this and all Ramp2Champ episodes, the 1 is also Miss Caitlyn Johnson, as we're back for episode 2 of Ramp2Champ and step 2 of her fantasy football journey. So, okay, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. There's no time to wait. Here we go. It's Cait. Hey, Cait. How the hell are you?
I'm doing just great, Owen. How are you?
Just great today. No case of the nerves over there.
Oh, no. Had pancakes for breakfast. I'm ready to go.
That's how you fuel podcast number 2, eh? This is the pancake pod?
Yeah, it sure is.
Well, I mean, just as a teaser for the coming parts of the episode, maybe we should have done a pancake toppings draft.
Maybe, but I don't know. Maybe it should have been like breakfast at that point.
Okay, but if it's just pancake toppings or like inclusions in the pancake, what's the 101?
Oh, syrup for sure.
Okay. I feel like there might be like differing opinions on that, but I think that would be probably the consensus, eh?
Well, like you can have a really plain pancake and put syrup on it and it'll be really good. And yeah, you could put toppings in your pancake like we did raspberries this morning, but still like the added a little drizzle of syrup is really added to it.
Takes it to a whole nother level.
It does.
Okay, so effortless transition here. So, Cait, let's rewind back. We were on a walk the other day, laughing, talking, being a couple. And you asked about the highs and the lows of my day. So I was thinking today we'd get started on a similar note. So I'm going to start, as that seems it helps you ease into the segment sometimes and into sharing. So I'm going to start with a low here because I think we should go low to high. How does that sound?
I agree. Sounds great.
Awesome.
And on a high note.
Exactly. So one of my recent lows was some negativity on a post of mine. Well, 1-0 Fantasy Footballs in various Facebook groups. My rankings have been laughed at. I've been now called stupid, a dud, and STFU, among other things. And now we're kind of at the laughing about it portion of processing our feelings, and just for posting like quarterback rankings. So I don't wish any ill will on, it was mostly one individual, but since this is my newish passion project and the first time putting myself out there into the public's eye, it was just like a surprising sequence of emotions, even though I told myself it was coming. And this actually segues really nicely into the podcast here because you and others are going to learn on your journeys into fantasy football that there's a really important thing here that we have to remember. No one knows what's going to happen. There are so-called fantasy experts, fantasy gurus, and, even the trolls on the internet. And they all have in their minds exactly what will happen, just like many things in life. And even me, I do too, but none of them are right. None of them are exactly right is probably the best way of putting it. So what was most frustrating was that this individual didn't take the time to read my thoughtful responses discussing the rankings that he felt were wrong. And he didn't take the time to listen to my podcast to hear the full reasoning. I could go on for a while about this topic, but this was definitely my most recent low and a negative. But through talking with my parents and you, it's not going to bring me down, and we've changed it into a positive.
Yeah, that was crappy, but I think you've done a good job at kind of reframing your mindset and paying more attention to the people who actually interact in a more positive way on your posts. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing with rankings is, like I said, they're likely wrong. All of them, not all of them, but they're likely wrong. Like nobody can get it completely perfect. But I think the cool thing about fantasy football is it has this huge opportunity to be such a community and such a discussion point as opposed to put downs and all the other stuff. But Cait, do you have any recent lows?
I'd say my low lately was being sick kind of last weekend and the beginning of this week. Just really wasn't feeling well, wasn't in the mood to do anything. And because of that, I feel like I missed out on a few things that I was really excited for this summer. And I don't know, July went really quickly. So I'm kind of like wanting to make the most of the summer because soon it's going to be snowing. And I know we don't want to talk about that, but getting sick in the summer really kind of just brings me down because it makes me feel like I'm missing out. But, you know, feeling better now. And I have a whole month left before my school starts. So trying to make the most of it now.
Absolutely. I'm sure you might talk about school for your high, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, no, the sickness, that was rough. But I mean, we can also segue into the sickness allowed us more time to plan out our own trips. So I announced on Instagram that that Want to Know Fantasy Football, being me, and you also weren't included in that post, but you know, because we're trying to get your own channel, but we're going to Indianapolis. Little birthday trip for yours truly. And I'm not going to tell you when that is because I famously do not like celebrating my birthday that much, just with those that I love. But so it's kind of a strangely private and personal thing for me, but we're going for a birthday trip and I'm very excited. And I think it's in a week's time. A week and a day. My dad and I, we're going to a Colts game in Buffalo too. So big things are happening. 2 games this year. We're moving past COVID. Cait and I, you might be going camping. I got another camping trip planned. So maybe July, less plans, and maybe we had some sickness, but things are looking on the up and up for August and September.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, not that the trip is really that close to your birthday anyways. So
yeah. It's a good point.
It just like happens to be for your birthday, but it's not on your birthday. Had a lot of stuff to work around.
Yeah. And okay, segueing into our highs that we wanted to talk about. So a high that I had lately was swimming with your nephew. For context, I taught swimming lessons for about 14 years, specialized with the younger kids and private lessons. And your nephew's right in that sweet spot. Mind you, we haven't done exactly what I've been trained to teach. Most notably, he struggles with the whole concept of just floating. But he's an active dude, so the floating portion of the instruction might have to come later. But he's swimming like a fish all over the pool, eyes open underwater. He can swim a couple of meters. Super impressive. So that's been awesome to see. I love seeing the aha moments in teaching and the moments when it clicks. And your little nephew is an excellent student for that.
I think he's been really enjoying it too. I think he's really proud of himself, which is cool to see.
Absolutely. It's not just about it's not about how far he can go. It's about the effort that he's putting in, but it's also really cool to share that, 3-year-old swimming a couple of meters. That's pretty notable.
Yeah. So cool.
Cait, do you want to share a high?
I think most notably my biggest high. I mean, I feel like I always have so many highs. Like there's always things I'm excited about. But I guess this week I just finished my last exam for the summer semester I had for school. And I'm really excited because I finally have a month off. It feels like it's been so long. I've been going at school since September, and it's just been like everything crammed into 3 semesters because it's an accelerated program. So I'm so excited to be done. I got a good mark on my exam.
I was going to say currently rocking a 3.9 GPA. I'm not sure if you didn't want me to share that, but that's impressive and deserves to be celebrated. So cheers to that. For those of you that can't see me, cheers and a coffee. Okay. And we could chat for hours. So let's give the people what they're here for, what they asked for. Let's learn some fantasy football. Let's ramp to champ. It's a wonderful day to learn some fantasy football. So we're bringing it back to the podcast topic, of course, fantasy football, as I mentioned.
I see what you did there.
Sorry?
I see what you did there. You've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy.
Yep, there are some parts that are inspired. I'm surprised you didn't catch that last time.
No, you did it last time?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't notice.
So before we begin, I wanted to reiterate the goal of this podcast series. My goal, I'm an Ontario College of Teachers certified teacher. I'm sure that might be getting annoying with me repeating that, but it's certified instruction. My goal is to apply my knowledge of and passion for teaching to my almost rabid and tenacious and sometimes all-consuming devotion to this proxy of a game. And here's the thing. My goal is to intake all the information I can and help y'all learn in chunked, digestible content so that you don't have to spend a ton of time on fantasy football weekly. My goal is to create fantasy football managers that spend around an hour on fantasy football per week who win. And the last thing before we jump right in, I just want to take a moment to remind y'all to follow and support the show. Make sure that you are following or subscribed to 1-0 Fantasy Football on your podcast service app and give us a rating and review if you feel so inclined. Be sure to follow on the socials too, at 1-0 Fantasy Football on Facebook and Instagram, at 1-0 Fantasy on Twitter, and 1-0 Fantasy Football on YouTube. With that being said, let's start with the Fantasy Reflect.
The Fantasy Reflect.
I'm going to reiterate it again. Reflecting is an important part of the learning process, Caitlyn, even though it still feels kind of schooly and might not want to do it as you enter into your summer. But last week we had an enjoyable chat about your process of finding a favorite NFL team with some help from yours truly. We asked you to recite the Ramp2Champ oath. We refreshed your knowledge on the positions on the NFL field. We discussed the players that score the points in fantasy football. And then we learned where to play fantasy, what types of leagues there are, and how many people are in a fantasy league, and how to make a fantasy football team. So if you missed this, you definitely want to make sure to go back and have a listen. There's some great stuff in our first episode. Today, we're going to reflect and talk about what you've enjoyed in your fantasy football journey so far. We're going to keep that positivity dial cranked all the way up. All right. So we're going to talk about football. Cait, you've watched football quite a bit over the past year, maybe more this year, especially if you're going to be watching your fantasy players. But we wanted to talk about some of the highlights. So one of the things that I always bring up whenever we're talking with people about your fantasy football journey is your love for the slow-mos. Talk to me.
I don't even know what to say. I just think it's really funny to watch those slow-mos. Honestly, it's kind of when you started trying to get me to watch football, I was like, I don't know what's going on. There's so many rules. And to be honest, I still don't 100% know what's going on, but I do my best. But I don't know. I guess the slow-mos kind of hooked me in because either the stiff arms really got me because it's like they're just like stopping people in their tracks. Like they're just like nope.
So is it the act of them stopping, or is it kind of the facial expressions, or is it kind of all a combination of everything?
It's just all of it. It's all of it. It cracks me up. I don't know.
Yeah, and people always like, even you and I, if we took slow-mos of our life, people just make funny facial expressions and there's funny things going on. And if that's a way to hook you into football for you and anyone else listening, like, why not? Because these guys are doing like these full-on car collisions on the field all the time and stiff arms and all this other acrobatic stuff. So sometimes we need to see the slow-mos, and it's hilarious and awe-inspiring and all these other adjectives.
Yeah, it's really funny. And I tend to look for things that make me laugh because those are the things that are enjoyable to me. So like the fact that I could find parts of football that make me laugh kind of is what drew me in. And like all I can picture in my head is sometimes when people are like running with the ball, they have really high knees because they're like trying to like, make sure that they don't try not to get tackled or try not to get grabbed or something. But
exactly.
those in slow-mo also kill me because it's like, what are you doing? But like it I don't know, it's just funny to me.
Maybe it's because as an isolated incident, it looks a little ridiculous, but in the context of the game, it makes a lot of sense. Once you think about it for a second, for some of them. Okay, so I think a lot of people, when they think of football, they think of football Sundays. They think of the most delicious parts of the game. When we were planning out this podcast, you just mentioned dips.
I love
just in
dips.
General. Now, not to be clear, we're not talking about like chewing tobacco or anything.
Like actually appetizer dips, like taco dip or I don't even know, buffalo chicken dip. Oh, we made a good buffalo chicken dip for the Super Bowl last year. That was really fun.
We did. That one was absolutely delicious. I think you did a lot of great work on that. So maybe come around Super Bowl time, we'll have to get you to share a recipe out from 1-0 Fantasy Football. Cait's approved buffalo chicken dip recipe.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you're forgetting one of the headliners here too. You got Tostitos and either guac or a little guacamole action or a little bit of salsa.
Could be as simple as chips and salsa and guac. That's always really good too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just like snacking like that. I would rather, kind of snack throughout the day. So having some dips is just kind of exciting because it's not something we would ever really make aside from when we're watching football or like not even when we're watching movies or anything. It's really just football stuff.
Absolutely. And I got to keep this segment moving. So another thing that we wanted to talk about as well was it's kind of just the general surprising and exciting parts that are happening. So one of the surprises that I referenced, we were talking about the Super Bowl here. So our Super Bowl party was pretty limited last year, just me, Dad, and you. And we were betting on the Super Bowl. And Cait, what was the big notable thing with our Super Bowl bet? Do you want to share?
I think we had like only a few dollars left to bet. Like we all kind of put money in. And then I was like, I think we got to bet on the Gatorade. Because until that day, I don't even think I knew that you could do that, but you told me you could. So I bet on the Gatorade. I bet on blue. I don't think anyone else bet on the Gatorade. It was just me.
I think I had red just based on the
maybe we just wanted to kind of we wanted to cover the colors, but my blue Gatorade bet was right, and it was so exciting at the end of the game when the coach got Gatorade dumped on him and it was blue, and I think we won like a decent amount of money, like not decent but like
it was $30
$30 like
because I think we bet like $2 or $3 or whatever it ended up being, and it ended up being worth that much.
Just like throwing a few dollars on this stupid bet, but it was really exciting.
Yeah, that really added to the experience. And we'll definitely be talking we're getting you ramped up for redraft / keeper. I know you pushed for keeper in our previous episode, but we're getting you ramped up for at least drafting this year. But that could be daily fantasy contests and, just prop bets could be something that we talk about on a future podcast as well. And maybe have a little bit more fun, especially leading up to the Super Bowl, maybe when the season's over as well.
Yeah, maybe that's like a Super Bowl special.
Yeah. And so the last one that I wanted to talk about here were some of the things that you thought were the most exciting parts of the game. So we had noted here the turnovers. I'll never forget you just yelling, Owen, I've never seen anything like that before. And that was, of course, referring to the Colts versus Jaguars Week 10 game, mid-November last year. The Colts block a punt only 7 minutes into the game and take it back for a touchdown after a little bit of fumbleitis on the ground. That was crazy.
It was crazy. And even just like turnovers or interceptions. And then all of a sudden there's a defensive player like booking it down the field. And it's really funny.
And everybody has to go, we're going the other way now.
Yeah. Oh, what's happening?
Well, that was a great discussion. So, I mean, if you're listening to the show, why don't you shoot us a note? What do you enjoy the most about football Sundays? Of course, a fantasy football victory, a favorite team victory. Those are the headliners, and of spending time with family and friends. But do you have a favorite recipe that you like to make? Do you have something that always stands out to you in the game? Or do you have something that you find extremely annoying? Like, let's say the announcers repeating the same thing over and over. Let's try to keep it positive, but engage with the show. Write us in. Let's move on to the first snap.
The first snap.
For the first snap of today's podcast, we are going to unveil the official Ramp2Champ Fantasy Football League. We actually had a discussion about this before the podcast where Cait asked, Owen, why are you the commissioner? Well, I don't know if you heard in the show intro, but commissioner extraordinaire right here.
Whatever.
And then the comment was, well, Cait, would you like to take over commissioner responsibilities? To which she replied,
no. I don't have time for that.
So for at least this year, I'll be functioning as commissioner. And I know maybe it's not the fairest slice because it's almost like I'm doing this for a living right now. So here's my challenge. For every person that finishes above me in the standings, Cait can add 1 to 2 more pieces of clothing from the thrift shop to me.
I understand.
So
I was like,
there's
wait,
6 people,
what does that even mean?
so let's say I finish in 6th by some weird miracle. Cait, you can buy 5 ridiculous things with my money from the thrift store, and I'll wear it for the whole day, and we'll go out.
That would be a sight to see.
So I guess that's just kind of the hype teaser. But as we discussed on our previous podcast, the league's going to be set up on NFL.com fantasy. For now, we're going to consider it a redraft league, but that's something that we can easily change just by adjusting the keeper setting. My hope is that the league is going to fill with people that the show has resonated with, those that want to learn along with you, Cait, or just people that play fantasy football that we know. As we chatted about last week, the best leagues are filled with active managers that communicate with each other also. So hoping to build a league where you feel comfortable chatting with people about a trade or even just interacting with in general. Same with me, and we'll go from there. So here's how the Ramp2Champ Fantasy League is going to work. As I mentioned, it's going to be on NFL.com. I'm going to be the commissioner. Cait and I, we're both participating. We've both already joined the league. You'll see me in the league as Want2Know Fantasy Football. And I'm not sure what Cait has named her team. She was a bit surprised that she would have to name it upon joining. Cait, what's the status of the team name?
I put in all caps, coming soon.
Which is a great teaser for the show. I'm sure, Cait, you're going to have a team name that you love, but I mean, people get stuck on this every year. You're not going to find anything perfect. So moving on, the league is going to ideally consist of 12 managers. So that's 10 more. But we can make it work with 10 for sure if we need to. The league already has its first member. So I'm going to send a big shout out here to Mr. Tony Stecca, who is part of our tech department at my former job. He plays slow pitch with me. He's our pitcher, Tony the Tiger. And he's gung-ho to try fantasy football for the second time. So we'll get into his first experience at a later date. It wasn't the smoothest, I think he would be okay with me saying. But a big Lions fan and loves to watch football, and I'm definitely very happy to have him. So let Cait and I be the first to welcome Tony Stecca to the Ramp2Champ Fantasy Football League.
Woo! We need crowd cheering.
See what I can do. The league is going to cost $25, with the winner getting $125, 5 times their money, and a signed jersey of an NFL player to be discussed at a later date. That's pretty exciting stuff. Second place, $50. Third place, $25. So if you're doing the math with me, the winnings are going to be about $200 of the money that is put into the pot, with the rest being put towards the signed jersey. Also, the draft will be held entirely online, and we aim to have it take place the last weekend of August, maybe tentatively Sunday, August 28th, maybe around 7:30 p.m., just in case we get any people who don't like the late night. But Sunday nights, people are usually free. That's usually my best tip for organizing a draft. Nobody's really planning things for Sunday night, so sneak your draft in, have some fun, and maybe use up half of one of those sick days if you want to have some wobbly pops. So this is the official call out. If you are interested in being a part of the official Ramp2Champ Fantasy Football League, follow Want2Know Fantasy Football on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter and shoot me a message. Tell me why you'd be a great addition to the league. I don't want to just hear about how many trophies you've won, though. I want to hear if you'd like to make a guest appearance on this podcast, if you like to make trades, if you're an active manager, and how you make your leagues fun, that kind of thing. Cait, do you want to issue a challenge to myself and other joiners of the Ramp2Champ Fantasy Football League?
I already know I'm going to win that jersey.
All right. Bold words there, Johnson. Bold words.
Gotta start with confidence.
Let's head over to the Skillz Lab.
Oh, yeah. We in the Skillz Lab.
I mean, it's kind of perfect today because our Skillz Lab, I was going to do a section on like general football knowledge, but I mean, let's have some more fun and let's get a little bit more engaging. You'll pick the football stuff up as we go. Instead, today, we're going to hone our draft skills, and we're not just going to do a fantasy football mock draft today. We're going to do a fun mock draft. We're drafting the best Disney Pixar animated movies. Now, you might be wondering, why am I emphasizing the animated portion of it? Well, this draft was set up with two participants who seemingly both have already forgotten the most important part being animated, which was included in the instructions that were sent. So your boy O-Dog, he's starting this draft ahead of the game. But as I mentioned, we're joined by two people, not just Cait. We got my sister, Emma, Sid the Sloth Drake. Sid, you've been dying to come on the podcast. You're here now in all its glory. Take it in. How does it feel? And how the hell are you?
Oh, I am just thriving and happy to be here.
And you mentioned that you're not just alone joining the podcast.
No, Flora is here as well, staring at me and crying.
And for the audience, Flora is Emma's.
For all the listeners who do not know her.
Yeah. Flora's Emma's little Maltipoo, and they are a tandem. They are a package deal, so we'll consider it the Emma and Flora team. But as I mentioned, we are drafting Disney animated movies. Pixar is acceptable as well. Just threw that in there just because we don't want to be too stingy. I thought I'd keep the draft a little bit more open, but I think most of our lists are Disney, if I can speak for the three of us, but I guess we'll have to see as we get in it. The draft rules, this is going to be a snake draft, so it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. We're hoping to go for 3 rounds. And, you know, it could end up being more. We each have 12 picks prepared, so that's pretty sweet. And so I mentioned Disney, Pixar, or very similar animated movies only. And if there is a case of discrepancy, say Emma drafts the Princess Bride or Lizzie McGuire, as she's been talking about, Cait and I can hop on and say, nope, we're not going to allow that. Or, yeah, sure, whatever you want to do. But again, the rules animated if possible, and not just one animated Lizzie McGuire. Are we all in agreement?
Yes, except it was Princess Diaries, not Princess Bride.
Thank you for mentioning Princess Bride is animated, right?
I have no idea.
We're showing our lack of knowledge here already, y'all.
We're not really movie people.
And Cait's been chirping. Cait's been chirping all morning too. She thinks she's going to win.
I'm chirping you over text as we speak.
Yeah.
Well,
or teaming up on you.
That's why you never introduced your girlfriend to your family, everybody, because then she teams up against you and everything. All right, so ladies, I'm going to share my screen. I'm not really sure if y'all are going to be able to see this. I got to minimize my draft list, but I've got the picker wheel up to see who's going to be drafting first and second, and we'll kind of go from there. Can y'all see the wheel?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can y'all see?
Who's this?
I thought the same thing.
Okay, so for the listeners, remember this is an audio format, so it looks like it says dis, but it actually says Sid. And I guess we can discuss that as we go through here. All right, so we're gonna spin and we're gonna see who's picking first.
Why can you discuss that as we go through?
I thought the same thing.
Oh, shoot. Oh, that's so much pressure.
All right, for those of you listening in, Caitlyn with the first overall pick. Now we're going to hide that choice, and we're going to see who's picking second between Sid and I. 50-50.
Oh, no.
We're going to say the eldest is probably going next, right? Right?
Well, it's just my luck.
Come on, Sid.
We're cheering for Dis.
This person.
Oh, yeah, it's coming around.
No. Yes.
All right, so our draft order is going to go Cait, the Saint, as our family refers to her, drafting first. Emma, Sid the Sloth Drake, drafting second. And yours truly drafting at the turn. That is the
order.
Okay, so that means, Caitlyn, you're on the clock for pick 1 in the Disney animated movies draft, which is the 101. And if you're wrong, listeners, we're going to let you hear it.
Okay. Number 1, I'm going with Moana.
Very nice. All right, Cait, tell us why Moana. Don't just pick. Sell us.
It has a lot of good musical numbers, and it's just family friendly fun. It catches you every time. It's just good. I don't know. I wasn't prepared to sell it, so
I think you're losing votes here.
The Rock is in it.
There you go. All right, Sid, Moana's off the board. You're up. Pick number 2.
Do I have to do the same thing? Like sell it?
I mean, if you want to win, like I mentioned, I'm going to put this vote up on social medias and see if anybody votes. It's a draft. Win.
Okay. Are you ready?
Ready.
Ice Age.
Yeah.
Saw that one coming.
You too.
Can I also pick 1, 2, and 3?
I don't think anybody's going to draft any of the Ice Ages after you take one, but tell us why. Why Ice Age is the number 2 pick?
I think it speaks for itself. and the next one.
Okay. All right. So we're up here on the turn. That means I'm picking twice in a row as I end the first round and start the second. The first pick here that I've got is an absolute no-brainer. We're talking Phil Collins. We're talking In the Jungle. We're talking Becoming a Man. Tarzan.
Yeah, I had that on my list.
I had that on my list too, just because I knew it would be on Owen's.
Well, the music is so good.
Look at this. People are selling my pick for me, audience. You have to vote for Owen. Get a little Tarzan action, little Tarzan and Jane, little trash in the camp. Go back, take a listen to that soundtrack. That is a phenomenal soundtrack. And if I can throw one more recommendation in here, The Legend of Tarzan as a non-animated movie is fantastic. Kind of explores what the real life version of real life version of Tarzan would look like. Okay, and for my second pick in this draft, this is a tough one because I know that there's one that I guarantee that Cait is going to take if I don't take it right here. And she's already nodding. Might be last letter of the alphabet. Who knows? But with my second pick, I am going to take a movie that I actually just really like. It gives portrayals of the brain that helps us name and understand our emotions.
Oh my god.
It's hilarious.
That's a good one.
It's heartbreaking. And it's all the feels of a pre-teenage girl while she goes through kind of a transition in life. Inside Out. Inside Out and Tarzan.
What's Inside Out?
You should watch it. It's really good.
You should.
I don't recognize it.
So basically, the premise behind the movie is that there's this girl, and we're kind of inside her brain, and her emotions are the characters. So there's anger, there's sadness, there's joy, and it kind of personifies. And as you go through the movie, you find different things. Like you can see that the dad's brain is controlled by anger, whereas at times the main character eventually ends up being controlled by sadness as she goes through this transition. So second pick, Inside Out for myself. Sid, you're back on the board. What are you looking at?
Okay, I'm going to go with Alice in Wonderland because it was my favorite movie when I was really little, and Dad always hated it and used to hide the VHS tape, which is how we watched movies back in the day.
Oh, okay. So worst pick in the draft right here in the middle. If you have to watch this movie every single day for what, Sid, maybe 3 to 4 years, it quickly becomes the worst Disney movie.
I stand by it. I still think it was good.
I think it's really good.
And I know a lot of people disagree with me, which is fair.
Okay. I'm ready.
Kate's back on the clock with her second pick.
I got 2 good ones coming up. Okay, my second pick is Zootopia. You were right. It's really good. Come on. And my third pick is Frozen. So I don't know about you guys, but I got some really good movies on my list.
Okay, so Kate, recap your first 3 picks.
I have Moana, Zootopia, and Frozen.
Woo! That's a powerhouse.
Sure is.
Okay, and Sid, that puts you back on the board.
I am going to pick Finding Nemo.
Oh, yeah, I had that one on my list.
Any comments?
Well, I think it really speaks for itself.
All of her picks speak for themselves.
Okay, and with maybe the last pick of the draft, y'all want to go 4 rounds? You got another one ready to go?
I thought we were going 4.
Okay, going 4?
Yeah.
Okay, going 4. So then I have my last 2 picks here. And I think since Sid went with her childhood movie, you got to go with the iconic.
Oh, I don't even have that one on my list.
We're going to go with some Lion King action here. And the fact that this is the highest grossing film of Disney all time. Come on. Fell to the 9th pick. Come on. Can't pass up that value.
You let it fall to the 9th pick.
I had that one on my list also.
I didn't even have that one on my list.
There you go. Owen lapping the field and showing why he's a draft savant.
Okay.
And then for my 4th and final pick, I'm tossing up between 2.
I know what 2, I bet.
You do?
I have an idea.
Write them down.
But they're written down.
Okay, you got them? I'm just going to go with my gut, and I'm going to go with Spirit.
Oh.
It's my favorite movie. If you're not familiar, it's not one of the more well-known Disney movies, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, but you got the story of this free horse and captured as the American plains are inhabited, let's say, or they're expanding west with the railroads. But anyways, just a fantastic movie, fantastic soundtrack. And that's really what I'm looking for in my movies. Great story, fantastic soundtrack, and maybe a little twist. So Sid, you're back on the board for your last pick.
Okay, 1 pick, and it's the last one.
1 pick, last pick.
Okay, it's tough, but I'm going to go with one. Can I give you a hint and see if you guess it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you ready? It's a quote. No, you shut up.
No!
I have that one on my list.
I spy with my little eye.
Tree.
Oh.
All right, Sid, what movie are we talking about
Okay,
here?
so the name of the movie is Brother Bear. Honestly, couldn't really tell you what it's about, but we have some great inside jokes about the movie in our family. We always get a good laugh. And I do remember liking the movie. I just can't remember. So that's my logic.
Okay, so I guess all kind of it's like with Disney, it's coming of age. You have a man that's changed into a bear. I feel like I'm the trailer of the movie right now. A man changed into a bear to discover what he needs to know about love and life. But you're right. Lots of hilarious quotes in there.
It just gives happy memories.
Yes.
All of them do.
Exactly. And that's what Disney's all about. Which ones did you enjoy? Which ones did you connect with? Kate, coming up for your last pick.
Okay. I still have like 7 on my list.
We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about best of the rest. But which one speaks to you?
Okay. Continuing with the really good soundtracks, I'm going to go with Mulan.
Oh, that was the one I really wanted to highlight at the end here.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of Mulan.
Yeah. I love the soundtrack. I mean, the storyline these days might not be the best, I think, but
Yeah, I think there's some controversy surrounding some of the Disney movies, but
yeah,
for now.
But it's classic and the songs are good and it's funny and I love the little dragon guy. So move on.
Mushu.
Yeah, that's what I had on my list is just Mushu in all caps with Eddie Murphy in brackets. And the quote, "My baby's all grown up and saving China." Definitely a line that we repeat in our family as well. Or you want to stay for dinner?
You want to stay forever?
All right, so that's our draft. So Cait drafting from the first overall pick with the heavy hitters. We got Moana, we got Frozen, we got Zootopia, and we've got Mulan. Awesome list. Sid's got Ice Age, Alice in Wonderland, Finding Nemo, and Brother Bear. Another strong list. I don't know how listeners are going to vote. And then yours truly, Tarzan, Inside Out, Lion King, and Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. Excellent draft, ladies. Excellent draft. And maybe we'll take a quick minute and talk about any others on our list. I'll go first here. One of the ones that I really wanted to highlight was Up.
I had that on my list too.
It's such an amazing and like heartbreaking movie right at the start where you see an entire life before the movie even starts. Then you add in some fun along the way, a floating house. What's not to like?
And a dog named Doug.
Lots of dogs. Talking dogs.
Yeah.
Cait, what else do you have on your list?
I had Aladdin, but I really like the non-animated Aladdin. So
that's fair.
Yeah. And then I had some Pixar movies, like I had Monsters, Inc. and Cars, because I love those ones.
I'm very surprised that you didn't take Monsters, Inc.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not like a favorite. I also had The Incredibles, because that's a good one.
Yep.
And then a really, really random one, I had Emperor's New Groove.
I actually saw that pretty high on a lot of lists.
It's so funny.
Yeah. Sid, what else did you have? I mean, aside from the ones that were non-animated, but now's the time if you want to highlight those. And again,
the non-animated ones?
Sure, whatever you want.
Well, now I can't remember because I deleted them from my list. So I'll just talk about the other last-minute animated ones that I put down. Yeah. I did have Cars as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, I love that one too.
Which, so cute. And then I had Bambi and The Little Mermaid. So I went very old school with them.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of our generation as well. Like, we grew up watching these movies. Emma mentioned a VHS. I don't know if there's any listeners in the audience going, what? That was back in the day where we had to pop it into the recorder and rewind it.
Oh, that was the worst.
Oh, takes forever.
I was going to put Little Mermaid because that one's iconic too, but I don't know. I knew Owen wouldn't go that way. So then I was like, eh.
Yeah, you just wanted to snake me, huh?
Well, kind of. I wanted you to not get the ones you wanted, but I should have taken Tarzan off the bat. I think you would have taken Moana, though. I don't know.
I would have 100% taken Moana from you. Exactly. Moana's fantastic. So if we can kind of bring this back and connect it just the tiny bits of fantasy football. So we're talking about Cait and I in this episode, we talked about how when you have a quarterback, you can have a quarterback that throws the ball and runs the ball. You can have a running back that catches the ball and runs the ball. So it's kind of combining both of these skill sets. And I think that's how we can look at this draft with Disney movies too. You heard that we highlighted the soundtrack and the story. So you think about these two skills, and if you can have both of these in a movie, that vaults it right up the draft board. Because you think about the top movies that we have at the top: Moana, excellent soundtrack, excellent story. Emma, Ice Age, Tarzan. All of these movies have just these incredible soundtracks that go along with it that really make them power hitters. And that's what we're looking for in fantasy football as well. Bit of a loose connection, but we got to have some fun today. And I'm sure with Disney, everybody has their very specific opinions of it as well. So if you're sitting there and you're screaming at us, why didn't you pick insert movie here? Well, message the podcast. Let us know. And Emma, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Cait, as always, thank you for being a part of this. It was a really great time, and it'll make the podcast a little longer, but we're illustrating the draft process and the thoughts you have to do, and the snake draft process also. Sid, any last thoughts?
No, just thanks for having me. I know nothing about football, so I'm glad that I was able to come in and at least show how a draft works. So yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Cait, take us out.
Bye.
Welcome back. Wow, those were some great picks by all of us. I especially really liked Caitlyn's second round pick.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was so much fun.
Little peek behind the curtain. We're going to be recording the fun draft with Emma tomorrow. So, wow, I really dominated this draft. Anyways, I could sit here and make funny comments about it forever. So we are going to hit into the warm-up. Let's go.
It's warm-up time, baby.
All right, Cait, you ready to get all warmed up? Ready to shake it out?
Sure am.
It's like your training camp, just like the NFL teams that kicked off this week.
Whoa. Yeah.
So today I got 7 questions for you. That might be where the whoa is, but we'll hopefully go through them pretty quickly. So we talked about this sitting on the couch the other day, but what are the positions that are important for fantasy football? Cait, do you already know?
Running back, super important.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, what's the name of that player? Wide receivers, important.
Yep.
Quarterback's kind of important. I don't think as important, but a few points there.
No need to get too hung up on important, just kind of the positions that we think about for fantasy, I guess.
Well, don't phrase the question as what's important if you don't want me to get hung up on what's important.
Some fearless feedback here.
Probably tight ends, maybe. Like those are the ones that are going to score the points, right? So maybe that's why those are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess because we got hung up on the important phrasing, we also got to think about kickers and defenses, but definitely less important. So you're right in that aspect. So let's hit her with the correct sounder, shall we? All right.
Yay.
So question 2 for some rapid fire. I know there may be silly questions, but rapid fire, let's hammer through them. What player throws the ball?
Quarterback.
What player catches the ball?
Wide receiver. Running backs can too sometimes. Tight ends can too sometimes.
Ooh, I don't know if I can do a triple ding here. A little choppy. And what player runs the ball, Cait?
I'm going to say the running back.
Ooh, but also sometimes the wide receiver does. So
And sometimes the tight end too.
That's true. Let's give her another.
And sometimes the quarterback too.
Ooh, showing up in my own game here. We're getting sassy. Okay, so Cait, how many yards does an NFL offense have to go usually to get a new set of downs if it's first down?
Is it 10?
First and
10. I see.
And I know we went over these last week as well, but how many points is a touchdown worth?
6.
Awesome. We're gaining some confidence, I think, with that one for sure. It's tricky. It always seems like it's 7. So
yeah, I get stuck between 6 and 7 each time.
How many points is an extra point, 2-point conversion, and field goal worth? All in a row.
Extra point, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, baby. Okay, now I got a couple of maybe challenging, but more challenging than the ones we've just been going through. So what are the 2 ways that a defense can steal the ball from the offense?
An interception.
Correct.
Or like a fumble, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Now, there is one additional way, but I wanted to kind of ask it by itself. So I got a couple of terms for you to define here. What's a sack and what's a safety?
A sack is when a player or the defensive line takes down the quarterback while he's still holding the ball before he's passed it off to whoever. And a safety, like the player or I don't know.
Little wrong sounder. That's okay. I mentioned to you that we wanted to try and get some more wrong answers on here so we can do a little bit more teaching as well. So the one thing that I wanted to note for the sack is it doesn't have to just be the defensive line. sometimes linebackers, sometimes cornerbacks, sometimes safeties. You've seen on the Colts, Kenny Moore come in there like a little flash of lightning and grab the quarterback as well. I know that's just a technicality, but just a reminder.
But like for defensive line, I meant like anyone on the defense. I didn't mean, the actual, like the people who line up. I meant anyone on the defense takes down the quarterback.
Absolutely. And then a safety. So that's when you take down the quarterback in the end zone, which means 2 points for the other team, and you have to punt the ball away. So it is a way of the defense stealing the ball. I don't know. I think there was a Colts one last year. I'm not sure if you were watching that game, but I believe it was DeForest Buckner, maybe.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that.
Yeah, so tackle him in the end zone, and that's, you can't go anywhere back from there. It's not like you can line the ball up in the end zone. So,
oh, you mean like if the offensive line is starting right at their like first, like right at number one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, they could be starting anywhere. Like realistically, I think they could be starting anywhere up to like the 10, let's say, where if the quarterback backs up all the way and then runs in the end zone or runs out of the back of the end zone, safety.
That makes sense.
All right, great practice. I think we're really making some headway here. What do you think?
I think so. I think gotta trust my gut on the points, the amount of points, I think.
Well, that's the thing. We're going to talk. So spoiler alert or tease, however you want to word it. We're heading into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast. And we're going to be talking about scoring. And the wonderful thing is, Cait, it's not 1970 or 1980. You don't have to count up and tally your points yourself or have the commissioner do it for you. So it's more of just being aware of when you're watching. It's like, whoa, that's 6 points for my team, or that's however many points, just being aware, which is cool.
Very cool.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to hear from our sponsors. Snob-free art for everyone. More than a motto, it is the way that the art is created. Brock Jones art is created for everyone to enjoy at a price that doesn't require a bank loan. This art isn't a social commentary or a deep dive into the inner workings of the psyche. Pretty pictures at a fair price. Visit brockjonesart.ca today. That's BROCKJONESART.ca to browse snob-free art for everyone, to view more information about commissioning a custom piece of art, or to contact the artist Brock Jones himself. If you have an idea, fill out the form on his website and they'll be sure to make it happen. And when you buy your first piece of snob-free art, be sure to let Brock know that you heard about him on here first on the 1-0 Fantasy Football Podcast. Hamlin Knives, handcrafted in Canada. With over 1,000 followers on Instagram, Chris Hamlin of Hamlin Knives has work that speaks for itself. Chris is his own biggest critic while producing his knives that are honestly incredible works of art and can often be found in his natural habitat working on his knives. To see more of his work and his family, including viewing a commercial that his knives have been featured in, as well as countless pics of his incredible stock removal knives handcrafted here in Huron County, Ontario, Canada, search Hamlin Knives on Instagram. That's HAMELINKNIVES on Instagram. Need more knives? Consider the Great Lakes Custom Knife Show in Bayfield, Ontario, Saturday, August 20th, 2022 at the Bayfield Town Hall, located at 11 The Square, Bayfield, Ontario. This event is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for only a $5 entry fee. You can follow Great Lakes Custom Knife Show on Instagram or Facebook for more information, or head over to greatlakescustomknifeshow.com for more information regarding this event, or to see the incredible list of over 20 knife makers, a leather crafter, and even a stabilized and hybrid handle material maker. Be sure to let Chris or anyone at the Great Lakes Custom Knife Show that you heard about it here on the 1-0 Fantasy Football Podcast. Like I said, let's move on to the meat and potatoes.
Today's meat and potatoes.
Delicious. Welcome to the meat and potatoes of today's podcast. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm referring to, well, head back to the previous podcast, and I'm just going to keep referencing all of that. Let's get those downloads skyrocketed. But the meat and potatoes, that's where we're looking at the main teaching content. So as we teased last week, we are talking about scoring settings. Now that Cait's league is live on NFL.com, we're going to run through the different ways that different positions score points. So we made it a little bit more efficient, let's say, for planning. I just threw a couple of screenshots directly from NFL.com. So it also has an added benefit to Cait. You're in the show doc right now. So you're looking at it. You can see kind of the different things that I was looking at as settings that it was prompting me as I was setting up the league. I've changed a few little things, tinkered, but we're going to talk about some league settings next week as well and how they can kind of impact your fantasy football journey. But just kind of browsing through here to start off, we've named our league Ramp2Champ League. Easy enough. Set a password. Not going to share that. That'll be from when we message and talk about it. We being anybody who messages and wants to be part of it. We got a custom URL that the NFL gives us. That's pretty cool. And it was asking me for when to set up the draft. That'll be coming. I'll definitely make sure to publicize that. And Cait, something that I've been thinking about in terms of the draft as well, we're doing an online draft. So I was thinking that maybe we could live record and chat about the picks as we go through. And then we can kind of publish the thought process too, which is kind of cool. So currently it's set for an offline draft. That would be so much fun if we get everybody all together. But with kind of COVID sitting where it's at, it's just one of those things that might not be worth it. But stay tuned. Big things coming. We've set it up for 12 teams, no divisions yet. And the playoffs, we've set those up. But we're going to talk more about that next week, as I said. So let's hop right in. We're going to talk about how players can score points. Cait, we're going to start off with the quarterbacks. From a high-level perspective, how do you think quarterbacks score points, Cait?
If they get a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious one, right? So if they throw a touchdown, they get points. So quarterback settings, and we're just talking about standard settings on NFL.com right now. As I mentioned, that's where we set up our league. So NFL.com and most sites that I've seen, they have it set up for 1 point for a quarterback for every 25 yards that they pass for. Okay, so what does that mean? So let's say they throw for 100 yards in the first quarter. Cait, quick math, you able to do it here. How many points are they getting if they throw for 100 yards?
4.
Excellent. Okay, what about 200 yards?
8.
Okay, how about 300 yards?
12.
12. Very good. So that's kind of a standard game, a standard good game from a quarterback. I know there's some quarterbacks, Joey Burrow last year throwing for 400 yards in 2 games. So that kind of just provides the scale that you're going to see. So if I have a quarterback that throws for 200 yards and you have a quarterback that throws for 300 yards, you're going to score 4 more points than me. Pretty simple.
Very simple.
Okay. Now let's factor in passing touchdowns. This has the potential to screw you up a little bit, but passing touchdowns are worth 4 points in most scoring. Why is that? I think the decision was made back in the day by those setting up fantasy football leagues that passing touchdowns, there's more of them. You know, you have quarterbacks like, let's say Patrick Mahomes that can throw for 50 plus touchdowns in a season. But if a running back ever scored 50 touchdowns in a season, everybody, like, they would win every single fantasy football league. For context, the highest amount of touchdowns last year, I believe, was Jonathan Taylor at 20 touchdowns, and that was 18 rushing and 2 receiving. So that's a huge number, but a great year is like above 12 for any of the other positions besides quarterbacks. So that's why that's a bit devalued. But I've also mentioned on previous podcasts that it's a setting that I like to adjust as well, and that can be something that we talk about. I like to adjust it up to 6 points per passing touchdown because it kind of cuts down on some of the discrepancies that we're going to talk about in a second. So I'll let you comment on that in a second, but we're also going to talk about one more thing for quarterbacks in terms of their throwing. Cait, you're looking at the document right now. What happens if they throw an interception?
-2 points.
Oh, one of the ways in fantasy football you can see your points go down. I just want you to imagine, Cait, being in the lead of your fantasy football matchup against yours truly. And then, oh no, an interception and Owen wins. Tough life.
Or the other way around.
Or the other way around, yeah. Interceptions can be definitely very backbreaking. So let's segue into the rushing points as well. And before we get into the rushing and receiving points, we're going to talk about the different ways of scoring receptions. So for a long time, which is now referred to as standard, there were no points that were awarded for a reception. How I explained it to my league when we changed to a half-point PPR, and I'll define that in a minute. Actually, I should define that right now. So PPR stands for points per reception. Okay, you catch the ball, you get a set amount of points. Half-point PPR means you get half a point per reception. So, Cait, if I was going to throw you the ball from the other room here and you caught it, half a point for a half-point PPR, a full point for full PPR. Make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
And these scoring formats were essentially invented because you could have a player, Cait, we've watched the Colts. You've seen guys sprinting down the field, making that huge catch, for like maybe 70 yards and a touchdown, which is a huge scoring play, very important. And they'd get a ton of points for fantasy. But if they only make one catch in the game, are they as important or less important than the guy that comes out there and makes 10 catches, but only gets, let's say, 60 to 70 yards? So this way was invented to give them more points for the receptions for the amount of consistent impacts that they're making on the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and I there's a little hesitation in there. That's fine, but we're going to get into how it's scored first. And it's difficult because I wanted to talk about the contrast between, standard and PPR, and then also the contrast between passing and receiving and rushing. So we're going to get into that. It's all going to come together. It's kind of a puzzle here. So if you scroll down and you look at the settings for rushing and receiving, you can see that both have it set as 1 point per every 10 yards. Now, that's different from the passing yards, as you can notice. So herein lies our first of the fantasy football tips that I think you've actually learned from listening to me record Want to Know Fantasy Football's top 12 quarterback rankings, where we talk about the advantage of rushing quarterbacks. So let's say a quarterback rushes and passes for 25 yards. Which one's worth more? Well, because he's rushing and it's 1 point for every 10 yards, he's going to get 2.5 points. But if he throws for it, he only gets 1. So that's why quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, who are some of the best passing quarterbacks in the league, they might be ranked, and they are on mine, ranked a lot lower than those that are going to rush for a lot more yards. And then we look down at the touchdowns, the rushing and receiving touchdowns. Okay, you can see those are both worth 6, just like an actual touchdown. Whereas we talked about the quarterback's points being worth only 4. So if we're talking about a quarterback that runs for 25 yards and a touchdown, or passes for 25 yards and a touchdown, that's not only a 2.5 times difference, but it's also an additional 2 points on the touchdown. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm absorbing.
Yes. No, I know you're a processor. So let me reiterate that one more time. So you're at the 25-yard line away from the end zone. Let's say it's Jacoby Brissett. I know he's one of your favorite quarterbacks. Jacoby runs it for 25 yards into the end zone. He gets 6 points plus 2.5 for 8.5 total points. Okay, cool. 8.5. That's great. If he throws it, he gets 1 point for the 25 yards plus another 4 for the touchdown for only 5 points. So do you want to have the quarterback that runs for a 25-yard touchdown, or do you want to have the quarterback that passes for a 25-yard touchdown?
You want the running quarterback.
You do. And you obviously you can't always control that. You're obviously going to have guys that are going to throw for like 4 touchdowns in a game or something like that. And that kind of is the way that the rankings they all arrange differently every single week. And no one can ever predict that. But it kind of just illustrates what some people refer to it as the Konami code. You look for the rushing quarterbacks. Just a fancy word for that. So now going back to the standard half-point PPR and PPR scoring. So standard used to be the default, which is why it's called standard. And I know that's kind of confusing, but the new default across most platforms is full PPR. So you get a full point per reception. My league of record that I play with Fusco, my dad, everybody else, and also the fantasy footballers, their preferred method of scoring is half point PPR, where you get a half point. But I don't know if it changes my drafting strategy too much for between these scorings. But obviously, if you're going to get more receptions, it's going to bump players up higher if they're going to catch the ball. So, Cait, we'll move back to the wide receivers here for a second. We talked about the player that's getting a 70-yard pass for a touchdown, right? And it's only one pass. Maybe that's the only pass that they catch all game. They're very important to their team's success because they scored the team's touchdown, right? But it was only one play. So one pass, 70 yards, a point for every 10 yards. How many points are they going to get for a 70-yard reception?
7.
Perfect. And then the touchdown is an additional 6 points. So we're up to 13, right?
Yes.
So let's say that there's a player on their team that has 11 receptions, very important, helping them move the ball down the field by getting first down. They have 11 receptions, but it's only for, let's say, 70 yards. How many points are they going to get?
7.
Yeah. But with 11 receptions, they were very important to the team. So what PPR does is they add those points. So for the player that scored the touchdown, had that long play, they're going to get an additional point for the reception or half point, right? For the player that was important on, like, in the other areas of the field, getting all of those catches, they're going to add 11 extra points. 11 receptions is a very big game. That's very unlikely, but they're going to add a ton more points, or 5.5 if it's half point PPR. So you don't really need to understand kind of how to calculate the points. That was more of just to keep you engaged with it. But it kind of just shows how it raises the value of the players that are getting more catches and are impacting their team that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just get confused when you ask me to do the math. That's all.
Well, you might need to get a piece of paper and a pen down for our practice. I've got one question in there that I might need you to calculate.
Oh, good. I love that.
Okay, so before we move on, one of the settings that I have in my fantasy league of record that I'd like to also recommend, if you're willing to consider it, you see these bonuses on here you can set bonus for the quarterbacks at 300 yards. It says 300 to 399, but the points we get awarded at 300. And then for rushing and receiving at 100 yards. So the idea is, if you're contributing that many yards to your team's success, why not give a bonus point? Scoring points is fun. I'm always sitting there watching my teams, and I know we have 2-point bonuses. So when one of our players is at 99 yards, you're just sitting there going, just get one more for the bonus. And it doesn't really change the drafting strategy too much. But Cait, would you like to consider bonuses?
I love bonuses.
Great. Let's throw them in. Why not? Okay. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to skip past. We got kick and punt returns, which I might just turn off because we don't really need that. Fumble recovered for a touchdown. So basically that one just covers if there's a touchdown scored, if your player recovers the fumble, then yeah, you get 6 points. 2-point conversion. If your player scores one of those, there's more of them in the NFL lately, you get 2 points. Pretty simple. And then same thing as the quarterback with throwing an interception. Cait, there's some negative points possible for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, really anybody that's holding onto the football. What could happen for negative 2 points here, Cait?
If they fumble, then they get negative 2 points.
Correct. So got to keep an eye on those. Okay, and then we move on to kicking. So, Cait, I think you can guess what an extra point's worth. It's listed there as PAT, so point after try.
Yep, 1 point.
Yep, nice and easy. And then field goals. So if they make it anywhere from 0 yards, which would be very difficult.
That's a weird, yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't do 0 yards, but anywhere from 0 yards to 49 yards by the looks of it. Cait, how many points do you get for that?
3 points.
Great. And it looks like you get a bonus if you go past that. So if they kick a 50-yard field goal or longer, how many points do we get, Cait?
5 points.
5 points. So again, kickers, they're very notorious in being difficult to predict. So this scoring settings kind of show that, yeah, if you can get one of those long distance kickers, you'll be awarded with 2 extra points should they go for a 50+ yarder. But you kind of don't know where the offenses are going to stall out. And that's kind of how I look at kicking points. Now we're moving on to the defensive points. So you can see if you scroll down, Cait, at points allowed 0, that's where we're at 10 points. So as soon as the game kicks off, your defense has 10 points. Defense is one of the more anxiety-inducing, let's call it, portions of the fantasy football experience, where you start at 10 and as they score points, you can just see them tick lower and lower and lower.
Oh, I see.
Till they might be all the way gone. So if they've allowed 0 points, if they skunk the other team, you get that full 10 points. If they score 1 to 6 points, then you're down to 7. So they score a field goal, you lose 3 points. 7 to 13, so they score a touchdown right off the bat, you're down to 4. 14 to 20. I would say some of the games finish in that sort of area. It'd be 1 point you still have left. 21 to 27, 0. And then, Cait, you see these negatives. If they score 28 points on your defense or more, up to 34, -1, 35 points against your defense, -4 points.
That's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, it might mean you might need to pick a better defense for next week. But those points can come back up. Cait, do you want to lead me through looking at the scoring settings? How can those points come back up?
So if someone on your defense gets a sack, you get an extra point. Any interceptions made give you 2 points. Any recovered fumbles give you 2 points as well. A safety, which we talked about earlier, about sacking a quarterback in the end zone, gives you 5 points.
Now, I'm going to pause you there for 2 seconds because the safety was set at 2 points. And because of how rare that play is, I've already bumped that one up to 5. And I'm not really willing to discuss that one too much. I mean, it's very rare. You know, I would be interested to see the stats on that. But Cait, there's 2 more things that you were about to cover there. So I'm going to let you go back in there.
Yeah. If your defense scores a touchdown, it's 6 points and a 2-point return.
Yeah, so a 2-point return. So think of the 2-point conversion. If there's a team going for a 2-point conversion, let's say they throw the ball and it's intercepted, or they're running it and they fumble it, that's when the opposing defense run it all the way back.
Oh, okay. Well, that gives you 2 points.
That gives you 2 points. And those are pretty rare as well. So I just went back and I was looking at the safety stats from last year, and there was no team with more than 1 safety. And there were only a total of 8 safeties across the league. So I think we're going to leave that safety setting high just because it is very, very rare. That's, we talk about how there's I think 250 plus games in the NFL. You're talking about 8 of them had a safety. I think we can award some extra points for a defense being talented enough to back them up all the way. And actually kind of factors in the punter as well, where the punter, Cait, you and I have talked about, it's kind of one of the more interesting plays where you punt it and they're trying to down it right near the one and back them up all the way. Makes that safety possible.
Yeah, true.
Awesome. All right. So those are some of the scoring settings. Cait, what kind of stood out to you? Any thoughts, comments, concerns?
No, I'm still kind of just absorbing. It's a lot to take in, so just mulling it over.
Yeah. So I want to provide some takeaways for the audience and for you, kind of from my perspective. So we talked about quarterbacks almost at quite a length there. We talked about how quarterbacks who rush, they're going to get an extra amount of points for moving the ball while they're rushing the ball. So I want you to start to think about the positions that can combine production. So for context, we're talking about that where quarterbacks who are passing and rushing, or running backs who are rushing the ball as well as catching the ball. And then wide receivers, which is kind of something that's becoming more and more frequent, that rush the ball as well. And we're going to get into something that I want you to take away from that information as well in a second as we get into practice, but then also the scoring settings were another takeaway that I wanted the audience to have. Standard. You're not getting any points for receptions. It's kind of just standard as we have it. Half-point PPR, you're getting half of a point for every reception, and full PPR, where you're getting a full point per reception. Cait, are you ready? Are you primed? You ready to practice?
Yep.
It's time to practice. Let's get funky.
Cait, you feeling funky today?
Always feeling funky.
Yeah, I guess what do you even say to that? I always put you on the spot for those, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot. We actually have practice music. Does this help?
No, this makes me not be able to think very well.
Well, we're gonna try it today. And if it doesn't work, we'll come around back and turn it off.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so Cait, fill in the blank. A quarterback earns you 1 point for every blank yards they pass.
25.
And 1 point for every blank yards they run.
10.
Very good. Fill in the blank one more time. A quarterback earns you 6 points for every blank touchdown.
Receiving?
Yes.
Wait, what is the question?
No, that's correct. But I was more looking for rushing because the chances of a quarterback receiving a touchdown are very low. But yes, you're absolutely right. We'll give you the right sounder for that. But as a bit of a note as well, we're looking for rushing there. And 4 points for every blank touchdown.
Passing.
Very good. All right, Cait, here's the dreaded math question.
Oh my God.
If a quarterback has 300 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception, how many points did they score? Let's talk this one through together, shall we? 300 yards. How many points are we getting for that?
For 300 yards, 12.
Very good. Yeah, exactly. And then 2 passing touchdowns. How many points?
8.
Good. So we're up to
16.
12 plus 8. Try one more time.
12. Oh, sorry. I was saying plus 4.
Only added 1 passing touchdown. Our quarterback's mad.
Okay, 20.
20. Very good. And then we're going to subtract some points for an interception. How many points do we subtract for that?
An interception is -2.
Very good. So how many points did they get for 300 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception?
18.
Let's give her a ding, ding, ding. Very good. I know you were nervous about that one. I think we did it. We got it.
Yeah.
All right, Cait, what does PPR stand for?
Point per reception.
Very good. What's the difference between standard, half point PPR, and PPR?
Standard is no points per reception. Half is half a point per reception, and PPR is a full point per reception.
Very good. Okay, now I got a true or false for you, so I want you to listen closely. In half point PPR or PPR, a running back catching the ball and gaining 0 yards is worth more than a 0-yard run.
True.
True. That's an important note, and so I want to pause here for a second. This is why receiving running backs are so much more valuable, because on a per touch basis, that means just touching the football. If you catch the ball and you run the ball the exact same distance, you're going to get an extra half point or full point for that reception. Catching the ball is much more valuable than rushing. Okay, I got another true or false here, Cait. True or false, rushing and receiving touchdowns are worth the same amount of points.
True.
Awesome. I think that was another delay one. You might have been sweating that out. Number 7, how can fantasy players, aside from defenses, get negative points?
Throwing an interception and fumbling.
Awesome. And then our last question of the day, to make sure that we intook most, if not all, of the information. It's kind of an open-ended question, which is great. Like to have open-ended questions for education. What's important for defensive scoring? What do you remember?
What's important?
Yeah. Or a better way of wording it might be just, how does defensive scoring function?
Okay, well, it starts at 10 and you lose points for however many points are scored against your team. but you can regain points with certain things like sacks and interceptions and defensive touchdowns.
And that's the timer on the practice music. Do you feel like that's something we should continue, or are you kind of done with that?
No, that was good.
Yeah? Kind of adds a little flavor to it.
It was a little loud in my ears, but that's just because I have headphones in. And
yeah, hashtag not a sponsor, but those Apple ceiling and noise canceling ones, they're pretty good, eh?
Yeah, they are. I like them.
Well, before we kind of let all the listeners go, I mean, any takeaways, any thoughts after that one? Any highlights? What are you thinking?
I think I understand a bit more, but it's still, I think, like, for me, I can hear this all I want, but I have to actually do it in order to understand it. So it's cool to see how many ways you can score points, and I'm glad you put the screenshots on here, or else I would have been totally lost. But I don't know. I'm just excited to start.
Yeah, and before we even clicked the, whoa, I might leave that one in there. That was funny. Bumped the computer and everything went a little crazy there. But we were talking before the podcast that a lot of things in life, you just got to experience it. And Cait, you're definitely like a learner that needs to experience the things happening and learn from your mistakes. And that's the kind of cool part. So we were talking about how Cait really, really wants to get all the Colts players because they might be the only ones that she knows at this point, aside from, some of the other big names, Tom Brady, such and such. But I mentioned that, unless she's picking at number 1 overall, it's going to be very difficult to get Jonathan Taylor, as he's the consensus number 1 overall. And she said, well, how would people know to take them? And I'm like, well, as soon as you enter your draft, all of the options are kind of sorted by their projected points from that service. So when we go into our NFL.com draft, you'll see their rankings or their sort of projections that will help guide your draft. So you can almost do it as, drafting for dummies if you're just going to kind of go down the list. And we'll talk more about draft strategy as we get closer. We're definitely going to have a mock draft episode where we throw Caitlyn right into the fire with as much preparation as we can give her and kind of just replicate the process. Because then when you're in your real draft, you don't feel as rushed or panicked or anything like that. And you kind of know what to expect. And again, like I mentioned, we're going to be recording during our own draft. That's what I'm really hoping for. So I'll be giving Cait advice and chatting her through her picks and stuff like that, which is an advantage. Don't get me wrong. But this is Cait's league and this is Cait's learning journey. And y'all are more than welcome to listen to the episode and hear the reasoning. And the biggest thing that I want to impart to when you get to the draft is the league is not won at the draft. Cait, we were looking through some of the settings or some of the finishes from last year from my league. And I know I'm crazy and I think I had over 100 moves in this league or 80 or something like that. And the next closest person maybe was 20 moves down or something like that. But it kind of just shows that the most successful managers in the league are the ones that are making the moves. Because, we talked about Anthony making a ton of moves. And then we talked about at the bottom, Preston not making as many. So, and then you actually also pulled out that there were a lot of trades made by myself, but that the trades in the data for how they finished, they just kind of seemed scattered around. So it's kind of cool little nuggets that you pick up over the week, just chatting with me.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right. So, Cait, we talked about we're going to do some more league settings next week. That'll probably be our primary focus. We'll talk about whether we're going to include individual defensive players. I don't know if it's just because we want to own Shaquille Leonard or manage him in a fantasy football league. And for those of you that might not be up to date, Darius Leonard changed his name to Shaquille Leonard. That's what his middle name he goes by. So linebacker of the Colts, if you're not following as well. Fun to have the defensive players. We got a great vote of confidence for adding the individual defensive players from Anthony on a previous podcast. So if you haven't heard that, go back and listen. And yeah, we'll talk about waivers. We'll talk about just, lots more coming from Ramp2Champ. So Cait, I know I threw it to you a little less prepared last time, but you want to take us out today?
Thanks for coming. Bye. See you later. Poof. Owen and Cait were gone.
We out.
want to listen to the next episode of the official 1-0 Fantasy Football Podcast. O-Dog out.